10.
Udet was instrumental in the development of the Luftwaffe's first dive bomber, the Henschel 123. Originating from an American concept, the biplane Henschel remained in service almost throughout the entire war. The plane that followed the Henschel into production was also championed by Udet. As the next generation dive bomber, for millions, it would come to symbolize Nazi terror in the early years of the war. It's odd to think that the Junkers 87 Stuka was nearly outdated when the war began. In wartime, and quite often in peacetime too, hardly a plane is in service that doesn't have its replacement on a drawing board somewhere. But when the Luftwaffe started looking for a plane to replace the Stuka, they didn't have to look very far. Orders were issued to create a revamped destroyer, able to perform yet another mission, dive bombing. Messerschmitt tackled the challenge head-on and came up with one of the war's preeminent multi-missioned aircraft, the Me210. The 210 was smaller than the 110, and with its short nose, the propellers could fit much closer together. The end result was a more agile aircraft and a better fighter. The new canopy for the two-man crew vastly improved downward vision during ground attacks. However, the aircraft did have some serious problems. The 210 was hopelessly underpowered, and there were also major failings with the undercarriage, but worst of all, the aerodynamics of the wing were entirely wrong. The bulkier 110 was a pilot's plane, easy to handle. On the other hand, the 210 was aerodynamically unstable and very taxing for the pilot. It couldn't maneuver well enough to fight, and it was too slow to run. Many 210s fell easy prey to Allied fighters, a scene here recorded by a P-47's gun camera. An embarrassment to both Udet and Goering, the 210 was widely acknowledged as a failure in a system that did not tolerate failure.
Goering, at that time, he had a very bad reputation already throughout the Air Force. He was a man, pompous man, you know, showing off, and he wanted to be what he wasn't. To be fair, maybe he was a great organizer before the war. He ran several political, economical programs, but he was certainly not a strategist. About air warfare, he was mistaken. And maybe he felt that he hadn't grip and control of the Air Force. I mean, the Air Force was run by some others.
The Messerschmitt Me410 was virtually indistinguishable from its predecessor, the 210. Solving the 210's handling difficulties was an intensive effort during which the wing and control surfaces were subtly yet substantially refined. The resulting 410 was a much better balanced aircraft and was by far the most advanced of the destroyers. It would also be the last of its kind. The Hornet was a truly innovative machine. In the cockpit, the pilot could look down between his feet for an unobstructed view to the ground below. The plane, small as it was, had an internal bomb bay, thus eliminating the drag that external bomb racks caused. The bomb bay could hold two 2,205-pound bombs or 8 110-pound bombs. Adding to this deadly load, room for additional weapons was made by 4 hardpoints mounted behind the bomb bay. Engine radiators sat on the outboard of each wing. Movable tabs controlled the airflow. In its day, the Messerschmitt's wing was a marvel of engineering. Not only did it house all the control surfaces, along with the rods, gears, and motors that drove them, but hundreds of gallons of aviation fuel as well. These are the leading-edge slats adopted for most Messerschmitt designs. And these are the dive brakes. The forward armaments were daunting and consisted of 2 cannon and 4 machine guns. The destroyer's defensive sting was controlled by the 410's radio operator. An automated system provided the gunner with a wide scope of fire above and below. Fire to the rear and on both sides of the aircraft was provided by these articulated machine gun barbettes. The first destroyers carried only a single hand-operated machine gun, leaving the entire undercarriage completely unprotected. The 410 Messerschmitt posed a far more lethal threat to attacking enemy fighters. With bigger engines and few of its predecessors' bugs, the 410 was a forbidding aircraft. Nevertheless, one persevering destroyer flaw would haunt it time and again: its power-to-weight ratio, because the plane was designed to do too many jobs. Ironically, by the time this improved destroyer was ready for action, the Luftwaffe's need for an escort fighter had disappeared. For Germany was no longer the hunter, but the prey. As the war progressed, Messerschmitt destroyer aircraft found themselves pressed into service as defenders. And in that role, their massive firepower would soon devastate American bomber formations.
We will return in a moment to...
In a tragic gamble, repeated daily, United States 8th Air Force bombers flew to German airspace, well beyond the range of their own escorts. It was hoped that the defensive power of Liberators and B-17s flying in tight boxed formations would deter the German fighters awaiting them. This dramatic footage, actually taken from a destroyer's gun camera, shows what frequently resulted. For a while, twin-engine destroyers were even more effective than the single-engine fighters normally used to intercept Allied planes. The destroyers had greater endurance, and they could stay airborne for up to 3.5 hours. Moreover, they packed such immense firepower that during the 3.5 hours, they could truly decimate the incoming bombers. But their advantage was to be short-lived. The range of U.S. escorts was constantly increasing, and in close quarters they could chew the Messerschmitt plane to pieces. This 110 is being attacked from below and hasn't the slightest chance of shooting back. And even the sturdy destroyer cannot sustain so many hits and survive. Although the destroyer suffered badly at the hands of American day fighters, there was another job it would find itself more than equal to. Radar was one of the few technologies